Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Philippine Guidance and Counseling Association free webinar series. And this is the first part of the webinar series. This afternoon, we will be tackling blended hugs, helping others through psychological first aid. But before we start, may I request Father RC? Father RC, would you like to lead us into prayer?
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear God, we ask you to be with us this afternoon, send your Holy Spirit, so that whatever thoughts, actions, and even inspirations, with your assistance, may always be happily ended in you. This we ask of you through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you very much, Father RC, for leading us into prayer. So this afternoon is very important for us, especially during this mental health, during this COVID-19 pandemic, to look after for our mental health. However, not all of us are mental health professionals, and this is a very big challenge, especially when the predictions is that we are about to face mental health crisis after this pandemic. Now, as laypersons, we can help one another through psychological first aid. But before we proceed, I would like to present to you our objectives. So the objectives of this afternoon webinar, so to understand the different concepts in the provision of mental health and psychosocial support services. Secondly, differentiate the possible strategies in the provision of the mental health and psychosocial support. And number three, appreciate the importance and limitations of the psychological first aid. So I know our participants right now, it's around 1,600 viewers through our Facebook Live. And we have around 8,000 registrants. And we are much overwhelmed and overjoyed with this kind of reception regarding this webinar. So the outline of our afternoon's webinar is first, we will tackle about mental health. Secondly, we will discuss psychosocial supports. Thirdly, we will discuss about psychological first aid, and the fourth part would be the question and answer, where we will get some questions from the comments of our participants. So the first part of our discussion is on mental health. As the World Health Organization would say, there is no health without mental health. And the mental health was also very important for the past few years, wherein our advocates lobbied and advocated for the passing of the Mental Health Act. And it was passed into law, RA 11036. Now, when we say mental health, we refer to a state of well-being. When we say well-being, it does not only include the physiological or the physical aspect of a human person, but also it's emotional, it's ecological, it's mental, and even it's a spiritual aspect. Now, if we are in a state of well-being, it is important or paramount that we can realize our own potentials and abilities. It's very, very important. Secondly, we are in a good mental health if we can cope adequately with the normal stresses of life. Stresses in life is normal, just like, for example, you were stuck in a traffic or early morning, there are some things that you would not expect to happen. And there are things, for example, when you arrive in your office, supposedly you're expecting this, and yung nangyari is the other way around. But out of that stresses or out of that distractions, we can cope adequately. Next is when we face disasters and emergencies or extreme life events. It's important as a part of a good mental health, we display resilience. We can also work productively and fruitfully if we are mentally healthy, and we can contribute positively towards the community. So when we talk about mental health, this is actually the the very notion. It's a state of well-being. Pero yung tanong, what if hindi ka na nag-work productively, or hindi ka na naging resilient, or you could not contribute positively or meaningfully with the community? It's very important na tayo mag-avail ng mental health services. And when we talk about mental health services, it refers to the psychosocial, psychiatric, and neurologic activities and programs along the whole range of mental health support services. Now, you have to understand, or we have to understand, na yung levels of the mental health services. So we start with level 1, the lower part. We have the psychosocial. Then we have the second and the third level, the psychiatric and neurologic, where our medical doctors, sila yung mental health professionals na gumagawa ito. On the psychosocial part, marami tayong mental health professionals na pwedeng tumulong sa atin, just like the guidance counselors. Of course, we have psychiatric nurses. We have also psychologists. We have social workers. And we have to consider also that when we provide mental health services, we have to understand that we are coming from mental health continuum model. Kasi yung mental health ay, it seems, na marami pa yung hindi nag-grasp or fully understand or fully appreciate the mental health. There are others na parang nasi-stigmatize pa when we talk about mental health. There is still stigmatization. It seems na, for example, if you have diabetes, if you have asthma, or if you have mataas yung blood pressure mo, it seems parang ordinary lang. Pero pag sinabing ay may mental health concern siya, parang or parang ano yun? It seems there is still a stigma, and we have to understand na yung tao, not all should undergo treatment. We can maintain actually mental health through promotion, prevention. Pag hindi makaya, then we can go into treatment. But what is important is we have also to facilitate, alalayan natin yung client when uh, after ng treatment for the aftercare or the recovery. Now, if we look on this slide, if you are mentally healthy, so ito yung nangyayari, you can have normal sleep patterns, you can control mentally, you can perform well, you have good sense of humor. However, with all the stresses in life, plus na wala tayong support, for example, it might deteriorate into reacting, wherein you might have trouble sleeping, you have some intrusive thoughts, you might be nervous or irritable. And of course, pag hindi talaga walang support, you don't reach out with the professionals, you don't reach out for help, you might be, your mental health might be injured as well as fell into ill. So, we have to understand na yung mental health, hindi lamang sa mental health illnesses, but also we need to preserve, we have to promote and prevent mental health concerns. Now, so mental health services includes also the promotion, prevention, treatment, and aftercare. And the mental health services are provided by mental health facilities and mental health professionals. As I have mentioned earlier, both for workplaces, for educational institutions, and even in our local government, there should be promotion and prevention. Very, very important. But of course, there are some of our constituents of the general public who really need treatment. And of course, after ng treatment, we must support them for recovery. So very important na tayong lahat, help in the promotion, could help in the promotion of mental health. Now, when we talk about mental health professionals, it refers to a medical doctor, a psychologist, a nurse, a social worker, a guidance counselor, or any other appropriately trained and qualified person with specific skills relevant to the provision of mental health services. Now, very important to consider that I have highlighted here, appropriately trained, and dalawa yun eh. Trained na siya and a qualified person with specific skills. When we are talking mental health professionals here, very important to consider that these things are intangibles. That is why some would or might not invest with mental health because it's intangible. So those who are delivering mental health services should be properly trained and with specific skills. It's very, very important. Now, role of educational institutions. Now, we have to consider that educational institutions have a very unique part or very unique role when it comes to RA 11036, otherwise known as the mental health law. Since educational institutions have twofold roles. First is the educational institution should provide mental health programs and activities for its learners, for the students. And the second one is to promote also and to provide mental health services and programs to its employees. So the role of educational institutions basically is to promote mental health as a second home. We need to promote mental health. Then provide basic support services for individuals at risk or already have a mental health condition. In the next following slides, you will encounter that the IRR of RA 11036, otherwise known as the mental health law, uh, clearly states that educational institutions shall provide a complement of mental health professionals, which means dapat educational institutions should hire and place in their organizational structure mental health professionals that would help the institution deliver these programs and activities. And educational institutions support only the basic. That is why for treatment and continuing care, the educational institution shall establish efficient linkages with other agencies and organizations. So it's very important, especially those who are joining us from DepEd, from CHED, from SUCs, and other private educational institutions. Ito po yung ating gawain. Ito yung role natin. This is what I'm telling about earlier. All public and private educational institutions shall be required to have a complement of mental health professionals. Last time, when I represented the Philippine Guidance and Counseling Association during the committee hearing ng House of Representatives sa Basic Education and Culture, we have made it in a point to tell the committee that actually our educational institutions, especially sa public sector, needs mental health professionals. Meron naman, pero kaunti lang because especially for the case of counselors, hindi attractive ang career progression, and it's ironic since the counselors as mental health professionals and career specialists, yet though they are career specialists, yet it seems wala silang career progression. So that's very important for educational institutions to look into consideration how to hire these mental health professionals. Hindi lamang sa ating mga guidance counselors, but also sa ating mga psychologists and even sa ating mga psychometricians who would be the bulk of our mental health advocates. On the other hand, educational institutions as workplace or as employers are also tasked to develop appropriate policies and programs wherein there is awareness, we correct the stigma and discrimination, we identify and provide support for individuals, and of course facilitate access to individuals for treatment and psychosocial support. So those programs and projects yung pinag-usapan natin, this is its latest na provision or the legal basis of it. The Department of Labor and Employment Department Order number 208, series of 2020, guidelines for the implementation of mental health workplace policies and programs for the private sector, and the Civil Service Memorandum Circular number 4, series of 2020, or the mental health program in the public sector. Again, the COVID-19 pandemic affected us in one way or another, and it is very important that we have our own support system not only in our homes but also in our workplaces. Now let's move now to psychosocial supports. Now, if mental health is overarching, we are looking now on the aspect of disaster and emergencies, or when there is a distressful situation. So bakit kailangan natin ng psychosocial supports? So when someone encounters a disaster, an emergency, or a very distressful situation, most people will be resilient and will recover and do not go on to develop significant mental health issues, most people. However, some would not. Survivors may be shocked and distressed, at least sa first impact initially. And most go on to exhibit a range of normal coping responses. Again, as they would say, the normal reactions to an abnormal ones would include this one, seeking help from others or offering help to others. We talk about the experiences and trying to make sense of what happened, trying to stay safe until danger has passed, and seeking information about the welfare of their loved ones. Very important to understand that when someone experiences a very distressful situation, the normal reaction to that would be three F's: either the fight, flight, or freeze. So either you fight for it, or tatakbo ka, you take a flight, or yeah, you just freeze. But again, uh, you have to adapt. Very important to understand that other nationalities would see Filipinos as very resilient individuals or a very resilient race. Maybe if we look on number two, we are very open, or as Filipino, parang it's so natural to tell someone our story. That is why sometimes when I'm giving talks or lecture, especially sa parenting program, ito yung sinasabi ko na uh, I got it from one of my priest mentors. Sabi niya, each one of us has a story to share. And talking about the experiences. However, the other side of it would be maybe a negative one if yung pupunta na siya sa aspect of chismis. Yeah, chismis might be somehow releasing, but generally, pag hindi maganda, it could do more harm than good. Ikaw, nakarelease ka, but for others, nalagay sila sa bad light. Other common general reactions when someone experiences a very distressful situation, when it comes to the emotional aspect, of course, there's arousal, there's fear, helplessness, grief, anger, being on edge, numb, and disbelief. It's, again, common reactions. On the cognitive aspect, of course, we have difficulty in concentrating, preoccupied tayo, we worry, there are images and memories and a flashback, and problems with even decision making. And in the social aspect, of course, we withdraw. There's a possibility of conflict, and this conflicting situation would lead us to relational or relationship problems. Now, when we again talk about psychosocial support is very essential in maintaining good physical and mental health, and provides an important coping mechanism for people during difficult times. That is why very, very important ang psychosocial support, not only for someone, but para lahat sa atin. And these psychosocial support or psychosocial interventions constitute the backbone of any mental health and psychosocial support response. And it includes a range of social activities to foster our psychological improvement, such as sharing of experiences, fostering social support, awareness, and psychoeducation. Please take note that part of the psychosocial support is psychoeducation. So right now, marami pa sa atin yung fear. They have fear, especially fear of the unknown. And we can combat that, or at least we can mitigate the feeling of fear through correct or right information. And psychosocial support would include psychoeducation. Now, in the conduct or in the planning and the development of mental health and psychosocial support activities or interventions, we have to take note of the core principles of MHPSS. So basically, when we give support, it should be anchored to respect, to the dignity of a human person. So human rights and equity. It's very, very important. Secondly, also, when we provide support, we have to consider, or we have to put in mind, that we should do no harm. Earlier, in some earlier slides, di ba, when we help, it's a sort of coping mechanism. However, we might uh, we might be blinded since gusto nating tumulong. However, because we are not competent, we are not trained, we don't have preparation, kahit gusto natin, we might do more harm than good. So always remember that when we provide mental health and psychosocial social support services, we should put in mind that we must do no harm. And of course, in giving support, we have to consider others. So we need participation, we need multi-layered support. Hindi lang tayo nag-iisa na nag-provide nito. Rather, we might required or we must be required to have a multidisciplinary team. Hindi pwede na kami lang or kayo lang, but lahat tayo. And it should be an integrated support system. Furthermore, when we give mental health and psychosocial support, our activities should be culturally or culture sensitive and appropriate. Uh, when we discuss later the psychological first aid, we will come across to this, bakit kailangan talaga yung maging culture sensitive tayo and appropriate. Then, of course, when we provide MHPSS, dapat it promotes well-being. Hindi lang isang aspeto, rather, it's the whole well-being of a person. And of course, affirms the significance of spirituality in the recovery process. So, tayong mga Filipino, very, kumbaga, very spiritual, very religious tayo. Kasi based on my experience and observation when I'm giving group processing, hindi nawawala actually at the end of the sharing of a person na he would share his trust or her trust with a higher being, with his or her God. And of course, when this is very important in the recovery process. And I would like also to share na very important na hindi lang tayo lahat prayer, but of course, it should be ora et labora, or pray and work. So we have to pray. Part of it is spirituality, but also we have to do our own share. And when we develop or plan for mental health and psychosocial support, it should be resilience and strength based. We are not heroes. Hindi natin lahat makakaya. So what we will do is to facilitate our clients or these people affected to use their strength as the jumping board wherein they can recover. Another thing, another principle also is professional and ethical standards. For guidance counselors, we are very strict with this one. And since we are also working with other professionals or with other groups, aside from following our own standards and ethical considerations, we have also to follow what is given or being there. And of course, collaboration and partnership is very important when we provide mental health, and psychosocial support. Now, I would like to present to you the IASC MHPSS intervention pyramid, or the Interagency Standing Committee. So, when we provide mental health and psychosocial support, hindi lang siya more of the counseling, more of the PFA, but it is a whole wide range of services. That would include, for example, at the level 1, we have to consider the basic services and security. We have to consider if those affected by disasters and emergencies need food, clothing, shelter, clean water, clothes, etc. So basic services, because we could not if the basic services are not given, or is not being provided, we might have concerns for the next steps. So very, very important to consider, or to, yes, consider first the basic services. Now, if yung mga tao, if our clients have already availed these basic services, now we have to move forward for them to recover. And the second level is the family and community supports. At this level, so the family and community supports for recovery, strengthening resilience, and maintenance of mental health and psychosocial well-being of families and children. So dito pumapasok yung, for example, yung rituals natin, especially yung when it comes disasters and emergencies, funeral rites, which is very, very challenging right now for COVID. Last week, I think I have read an article or a Facebook post from a person wherein he shared that when his father died, dalawa lang sila ng kapatid niya yung Crescent, because naka-quarantine silang tatlo, including their father. The other family members, the other siblings, were not able to witness or to attend the rites or the rituals anymore, and that's kumbaga masakit para sa kanila. And of course, their families from other provinces were not able to console them, or kahit man lang nakasupport by being present there. And this is one of the challenges right now during COVID-19. Now, community supports the psychosocial well-being of our children and families. However, we have to consider na hindi lahat merong the same process of coping. Others may be struggling, others may be slow but moving, others may have the average type of coping, yung others mabilis talaga mag-cope. And those people, or those persons who might be struggling, really need a focused care. So individual care na. Focused care or focused non-specialized support by trained supervised workers to children and families. So dito napapasok sa atin si psychological first aid and other psychosocial support intervention, and even counseling would be in the focused care. So very important na yung sa focused care, trained sila and supervised workers. And of course, there is a part of our society na talagang they will be needing specialized care. So dito na papasok yung ating mga psychologists, mga psychiatrists, and other specialized mental health professionals. So they will be needing, this is beyond the scope of the general or non-specialized services. So this is how things work. So we have to consider first the basic, then the community, then we go to individual focused, and of course, specialized care. Now, I would like to share to you, especially those planners, especially those in depth ed or in our educational institutions. If we plan for interventions, hindi lang isa, but it's a whole range. There are other interventions. No? So, I've got this from, the source is, or the reference is at the last part of my slides, but you can see uh, the reference of this slide. So the common reactions in the young age group. So when a young person or a child experiences disaster or emergencies, or even a distressful situation, ito yung possible na reaction or behavior niya. I would like to focus only on two. For example, lack of verbalization and sleep disturbances. Now, for example, if the child, yung reaction niya or behavior niya is lack of verbalization, there are suggested support or interventions. So example of a suggested support or intervention is to verbalize common feelings and complaints. Siyempre, yung mga bata, hindi naman natin alam kung masakit ang tiyan niya if hindi siya nagsasabi na masakit ang tiyan niya or masakit yung ulo niya or hindi maganda yung pakiramdam niya. So, the child should verbalize his or her feelings. And how can we let the child verbalize his or her feelings? So, this one, yung suggested niya is to provide art and play materials for children. Another one is, for example, during this time, the sleep disturbances, hindi lamang yung mga bata, but maybe some of us na adults are also experiencing sleep disturbances. So for a child, the suggested support or intervention para sa ating mga kabataan is to give extra time and assurance at bedtime. So very important ang presence natin as parent or a significant other. And yung possible intervention is we plan calming activities before bedtime. So our calming activities, it's again, there's a wide range of activities. Starting from basic, we might go to breathing exercises and so on and so forth. So this is only an example, especially to our planners. Now, we have to consider also that in the provision of psychosocial support, may binibigay yung mga yung international organizations or those institutions na general concepts and guidelines. However, dito sa atin sa Pilipinas, we have also national laws and policies. For example, in World Health Organization or UNICEF or Red Cross would say this, but of course we have to consider that there are national laws and policies within our country. And in provision of the psychosocial support, we have only to work within the scope of allowable practice. For example, in the example counseling, in US, there are, aside from counselors, there are other professionals who can give counseling. That's clear in their laws. And they have also regulatory boards on that. But in the Philippines, right now, when we talk about counseling in the aspect of mental health, then we refer only to counselors and psychologists. Aside from that, there are no other uh, professionals who can do that, because either it's hindi naman nakikita or hindi naman siya um, makikita sa law nila, but in the laws of psychologists, practice of psychology, and the practice of guidance counseling, it's very clear that these two professions can provide counseling. So we, in the provision of psychosocial support, it's very important that we tap the right and correct mental health professionals. Now, if our concern is lack of mental health professionals, kasi some would not or might not want to venture into this area because syempre wala, it seems right now wala ka namang future, no? Especially in the public service, hanggang wala kang, hindi ka nga ma-promote, for example, especially sa guidance counselors. So as lay persons, actually we can do something. And ano yung pwede nating magawa? One of the interventions sa psychosocial supports is the provision of the psychological first aid. Now, what is psychological first aid? Okay. When we say psychological first aid or PFA, it describes to a humane, supportive response to a fellow human being who is suffering or who may need support. This is a humane, supportive response. So we need to help others by providing PFA. So PFA involves the following themes. So we have to consider so providing practical care and support which does not intrude. So we support but we don't intrude. We assess the needs and concerns, help people to address basic needs, for example, food and water, information. And of course, PFA, theme niya, we listen to people but not pressuring them to talk. We listen, we don't intrude or we don't pressure them to talk. We comfort people and help them to feel calm. Even our presence could be calming for others. And of course, helping people connect to information, services, and social supports. So hindi lang ito about listening, but also connecting or helping people to connect. And of course, protecting people from further harm. PFA aims to provide psychosocial support just like those in the physical first aid. Diba? Sa physical first aid, if you have a cut or a wound, so you have to wash it, you have to apply betadine, for example, or to dress it. If medyo malalim, then we go to hospital, but you have to apply first aid. Now, when it comes to psychological aspect, psychological first aid provides this one. So, paunang lunas lamang. So, we help minimize psychological injury and we facilitate recovery. Now, PFA also is a method of helping people in distress so they can feel calm and supported to cope better with their challenges. It's also one way of assisting them to manage their situation and make informed decisions. So very important. We assist and we facilitate. The basis of PFA is caring. We care about the person. So under normal circumstances, when we care, very important. We have that presence, we have that touch, for example, and so on. And we care for them, especially when they are distressed, and we show empathy. And PFA involves paying attention to reactions, active listening, if needed practical assistance, such as problem solving, help to access basic needs, or referring to further options for assistance. So diyan papasok yung ating core actions of PFA, which we will later be discussing, the 3 L's: look, listen, and link. And PFA helps normalize worry and other emotions, and also promotes healthy coping and provides feelings of safety, calming, and hope. So we give our mere presence give assurances for the safety, for the calmness, and of course giving hope to others. What PFA is not. So PFA is not something that only professionals can do. So when we say professionals, these are mental health professionals in our context in the Philippines. Pero PFA can be done by a lay person. Okay. PFA is not professional counseling. If you are giving PFA and then you keep on asking why, if you keep on asking details, bakit nangyari yan, bakit nagkaganito, what is your take about that, and so on and so forth. Again, you might already be venturing to counseling and not on PFA. PFA is not also a psychological debriefing and does not necessarily involve a detailed discussion of the event that caused the distress. Again, PFA is, we start basically being present there, and your presence is an assuring and calming presence. PFA is not asking someone to analyze what happened to them or put time and events in order. It's important that you have to listen, to be there and to listen. Kasi there are people out of their distress who just need to vent out their emotions. They might need someone who will just be there to listen to their story. Here in Iloilo, since I am based from Iloilo, every Sunday we have a time slot for in our radio stations because the Iloilo City government, we have this mental health and well-being resilience project. And one question of media practitioner, she asked me, so sir, is that the reason pala na some relationships might be strained because when someone goes to you and talks to you or just vent out, you're trying to judge or to be biased, or you want to control the life of the person. Sabi ko, yes. We don't impose ourselves. Providing PFA is being there to listen without any judgment, being there, being genuine, trustworthy, na there is someone na yung sinasabi niya is safe with you. Although PFA involves being available to listen to people's stories, it is not about pressuring people to tell you their feelings and reactions. Now let's go to the core action principles of the PFA. So we have the 3 L's: look, listen, and link. So 3 L's. So when we say look, it refers how to assess. So we check for safety. We find those with priority needs or serious distress. It happens especially when we are dealing with the old normal. I mean, before, when we have the face-to-face interaction. Dati, when we are providing PFA, we look for the example when we look sa client, nakaligo ba to, kakain to, what are the other behavioral manifestations, or uh, nakatulala. So we always look for it sa look na aspect. But of course, we need to consider also na sa ngayong panahon under the, as they would say, new normal, we might be delivering remote PFA. So in the remote PFA, we need to look on the current situation. Sino ba to yung nagsisik ng support? What are the risks? The needs of the affected and the expected emotional reactions. During under normal circumstances, these are the common distress reactions to crisis. So we have physical symptoms, anxiety, fear, weeping, grieving and grief and sadness, guilt or shame. This is very evident, especially those for those who have survived, pero they were hindi nila natulungan man lang yung members of their family or their loved ones na namatay. This is very evident, for example, in disasters. I would like to share an example, especially dito sa Iloilo when last December, because of typhoon, there was a flash flood in the northern part of Iloilo, and one story that struck me most is the story of a father wherein, of course, walang ilaw, brand out since may bagyo. Tinangay sila ng baha. But along the way, nabitawan niya yung kanyang isang anak. And it might result to guilt or shame for having survived, but others, you weren't able to save others. Others may be so elated because they have survived. Or others might be so being on guard or jumpy, very sensitive. Anger and of course irritability, being immobile or withdrawn, nag-distance, disoriented, hindi niya na alam yung pangalan o ano nangyari o saan siya nanggaling, inability to speak or to respond to others, confusion, emotional numbness, being dazed or in state of disbelief, hindi siya makapaniwala na ito na nangyari, inability to take care of self or others' children, hindi na siya nakakain, hindi na natutulog, or even could not make even simple decisions. So again, these are the common reactions to crisis. But in the COVID-19, you have to consider that these are some considerations. So a person might need help or is asking for help because of its media posts. So we look on the social media posts. Kamusta yung pinopost niya? It's all about disbelief or hindi na siya hopeful, so on and so forth. Another thing is social exclusion or no longer responds to correspondences. So, hindi na siya sumasagot ng email, kinakamusta, hindi na siya sumasagot sa mga tawag or messages, so on and so forth. Or for employers or supervisors or managers attending this webinar, those employees na dati maganda yung trabaho niya but now low work productivity na siya. So, yung quality of work hindi na maganda or subpar, does not submit on time already, and hindi na siya nag-attend ng meetings. So, it might be the red flags we need to consider. So, when we talk about listen, it refers how to those who need support, to their concerns, help them feel calm. So we listen with our with our eyes, with full attention, with our ears, truly hearing the worries of the affected, and the heart with genuineness and respect. Again, this slide on listen is applicable on especially on face-to-face interaction. Pero when we talk about remote PFA, the remote PFA can be done through through teleconferencing or through help or hotline. So as a PFA provider, we need to begin the conversation. We need to let the client feel that he or she is welcome. So we let them feel na welcome siya. Then we introduce ourselves. We introduce, so as a helper, for example, in in a tele or in a remote PFA, so as a helper, as a provider, you need to introduce yourself. Then you have to pay attention and listen actively. Kasi there are times na if there are callers, hindi ka pa nakapag-introduce ng self mo, ayan na, nag-open up. It is important also that we accept and affirm their feelings. We need to calm someone in distress, ask about needs and concerns, and to help find solutions to needs and problems. So that's how we would listen in terms of remote PFA. So we might encounter, for example, especially those who are having already or operating their helpline, how to calm someone in distress. We might also tackle that in the next webinars, wherein I think it's with Doc Julian on the tele counseling. So we can discuss that further. Now, when we say active listening, very important yung active listening. When we say active listening, it is a way of listening and responding to another person that improves mutual understanding. It is important that when we give or when we provide mental health, we should always remember that the provision of PFA is not for us. Rather, it's for the client. Hindi tayo dito yung bida. Ang bida is the client. Okay? So we will discuss further, especially in the do's and don'ts later. So active listening is a structured form of listening and responding that focuses the attention on the speaker. In providing PFA, these are things to say and do. Again, this is during normal situations. So first, we try to find a quiet place to talk and minimize outside distractions. This is also the idea or the rationale why in schools or mental health professionals should have clinics. For schools, there should be guidance offices. Kasi how can a person open up if there are distractions? Or how can a person vent out? Hindi naman siya mahihiya if lahat nakatingin sa kanya. So it's very, very important. So under normal circumstances, we must stay near the person but keep an appropriate distance. Sa ngayon, Since we are in remote PFA, under new normal, so ito, distance talaga. So we must deliver now PFA in using remotely. So let them know you hear them. So under normal circumstances, if you're facing each other, so you can nod your head. Pero pag over the phone, talagang you have to consider na the client must know that you are listening, and you are not only listening but attentively listening or actively listening. So when giving or providing PFA, we should be patient and calm. No? Siyempre, pag irritable tayo, if nagmamadali tayo, no? Of course, the client can sense it. And of course, how can someone trust you na ito, hindi naman siya pala sold out sa akin? Provide factual information if you have it. So you provide the factual information, and we should be honest in providing PFA. Be honest about what you know and what you don't know. So very important. So hindi tayo mag-ask if na kaya natin. That is why very important ang third operational principle of BFA, not to link. Hindi tayo dito hero. So we need to link. So give information in a way that the person can understand. So keep it simple. As much as possible, the information should be simple. Furthermore, we acknowledge how they are feeling. So we have to recognize, to affirm how they feel, and any losses or important events they share with you, such as loss of home or death of a loved one. So I'm so sorry because of the death of your loved one. Furthermore, we have to respect privacy. So the story of the person is confidential. So this is one thing also concern namin sa mga mental health professionals. Since for example, sa mga guidance counselors, our law, our A 9258, is very explicit on the right of privileged communication of our clients. So this is the protection. When we say a right to privileged communication, this is the right of the client. This is a protection of the client against unwanted divulgement or ma-divulge yung data or yung sinabi niya sa counselor. Now, however, that rule is not absolute. We can break actually the rule on confidentiality under the circumstances we're in. The client can or is already threat to himself or to others. So we can break the confidentiality. Pag, yeah. He will hurt him or herself and hurt siya someone in the community. And of course, if the courts would require us by way of subpoena, so wala kaming magagawa but to break that confidentiality. And we have also, when we are providing PFA, we should acknowledge the person's strength and how they have helped themselves. So very important, very important na we use the person's strengths and how they have helped themselves. So jumping board yung strength nila in order for them to recover. Okay, now let's go to things not to say and do. So as PFA providers, don't pressure someone to tell their story. Don't interrupt or rush someone's story. By our mere presence again, our calming and reassuring presence, we don't give opinions of the person's situation, just listen. The mere presence. Don't touch the person if you're not sure it is appropriate to do so. Again, this is under normal circumstances. We don't touch someone, but as of now, may physical distancing na nga eh. And don't say you shouldn't feel that way, or you should feel lucky because you survived. It might trigger others. So, imbes na makatulong tayo, again, it will do more harm. Now, don't make up things you don't know. Huwag tayong magpa-as if. It's very important. Don't use too technical terms. As much as possible, simple. Don't tell them someone else's story. It seems, kumbaga, quote unquote, the center of our attention here is a client, and it's all about the client. Don't talk about your troubles. Another concern is, yes, when we give support, when we give help, actually it's for some, or maybe some more of many of us would feel good kasi nakatulong tayo. It might be our way of coping. Pero when we provide PFA, we have to consider na before providing PFA, we're also physically, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, mentally prepared. Kasi baka yung sinasabi ng client sa atin might be trigger of sa ating needs or sa ating sensitivities. So when we provide PFA, we don't give false promises or false reassurances. Don't feel that you have to try to solve other person's problems for them. Hindi tayo superhero, hindi tayo Superman na lahat kakayanin natin. Rather, we have to give that power to our clients. So we don't take away the person's strength and sense of being able to take care of themselves. What we have to do is to, kumbaga, may isang time, may isang moment wherein the person can refresh, can be recharged emotionally. And wherein after that, with all his or her existing strength, he can be able to care for him or herself. Now, considerations in giving remote PFA. So as we have discussed, empathy and warmth, attention and affirmation, very important kasi in remote PFA, some of us might be using phones, so hindi natin nakikita. Others might do this also, parang telecounseling, teleconferencing na setup, Skype or Google Meet or Zoom. So we need to let them feel na they are welcome, may gusto makinig sa kanila, acceptance, and without biases, and of course they are safe. And we need to consider to ask the right questions, and we have to be aware that right now, especially in COVID-19, in this pandemic, it is normal to react with anger, frustration, or confusion when experiencing adversity. It's a normal one because remember kanina, when a person is experiencing a distressful situation, kung may 3 L's tayo sa PFA, we have also 3 F's. Ang reaction natin, fight, flight, or freeze, which is, again, normal. It's normal to be angry. It's normal to be frustrated. It's normal to be confused, especially when you're facing adversity. That makes us view ba? So in provision of remote PFA, so very important, we have to introduce ourselves. We ask how can we be of help? For example, the Philippine Guidance and Counseling Association, the PGCA, we have collaboration with the National Center for Mental Health. So when we are receiving clients, for example, so we always introduce ourselves. For example, sa akin, Francis Ray Subong, I'm your mental health professional or your mental health helper. How can I help you? So we agree on the duration of the call. Very important that we agree kasi baka more than 1 hour, and if you're not prepared for it, if you're not trained for it, it might be taxing for you also. You might be tired kahit isa pa lang. So usually we try to put this the time for PFA around 30, maybe 30 minutes to 45 minutes. So of course, we listen to the practical and emotional needs of the caller. We have to find out also na ano talaga yung need ng caller. We need also to ask about how they cope, how they care for themselves, and how do they manage stress. It's very important because this one we will tackle that on the link part. Kasi pag example, kamusta siya kamusta ang client, kamusta yung caller, nag-cope siya, how does the client or caller care for him or herself? Naliligo ba siya? Kumakain pa ba yan? Or baka nandyan na lang sa loob ng bahay, hindi na lumalabas, and so on and so forth. And of course, in delivering remote PFA, we ask what the caller will choose to do. Anong gusto mo mangyari? Or we assist the caller to find out the things they can do. So anong pwede mong gawin? For example, you ask them or suggest that they write a list for inspiration. Again, this is very important since we're only facilitators as PFA providers. We need them to look for themselves and don't take away sa ating clients ang power to take care of themselves. Now, let's go to the link part. Sa link part, or the third core action principle link, it refers how to assist with people with basic needs and services, to information, to their loved ones, to further support. So linking is not only for further support, but also for information, for their loved ones, for the basic needs and services. So we assist them to access information, reliable and right information. We assist them also in connecting with their loved ones and social support. I know counselors here, for example, joining our webinar have experiences na their learners or their students na kumbaga na naipit sa during the COVID, hindi nakauwi ng provinces. So we help them also connect with their loved ones in social support. So we tackle practical problems and accessing services and other help. So that's how we link. Now, these are some considerations. This is what I'm telling earlier. Sorry. So when a caller, if the caller is this one, is kind of this one, we need to refer him or her to specialized help. So if a caller has not been able to sleep for the last week and is confused and disoriented, it's beyond your competence, beyond your expertise. You have to refer that to mental health professionals. So if a caller is so distressed that they are unable to function normally and care for themselves or their children, for example, not eating or keeping clean, literally, you have to refer that. If a caller loses control over their behavior, mag-burst out lang siya in an unpredictable or destructive manner, or even while you are taking the call, sinisigawan ka na. So you have to refer that. Ito, if the caller threatens harm to themselves or others, as they would say, suicidal, you have to refer them already. Hindi mo na yan kaya as a PFA provider, as a lay person. If the caller starts excessive and out of the ordinary use of drugs or alcohol as a coping, maybe as a coping mechanism because of the common reactions, you have to refer. If the caller is living with a psychological disorder or may pre-existing mental health condition na siya, or is taking already medication prior to the situation of distress, and might need continued mental health support, again, you have to refer that. For example, another thing, since I'm based also in Iloilo, I'm one of the members of the Western Visayas Psychosocial Support for COVID-19. This is a volunteer group composed of the mental health professionals of Negros Occidental and Bacolod, Iloilo, Capiz, and even Antique. So, if meron kaming client na we would always ask based when we have already the kasi before the client, we would take in the client, we have an intake form for that. Part of our intake form is a question if the client has an existing or pre-existing psychological or mental health condition. Because pag ganon, iba yung approach namin. So, yung nag-handle, diretso kami, we direct it already to our in-house psychologists. Now, if a caller presents chronic health conditions and need more supports, we might need that. Baka kailangan niya yung kanyang doctor, or yan, for example, for those with pre-existing mental health conditions, kulang na yung ang kanyang medicine, yung gamot niya. So we have to refer that. Then, present symptoms of a severe mental health conditions, or if a caller is experiencing violence or being sexually abused, we need to refer that client or that caller to our social workers for case management, and even to our women's children and protection desks ng ating Philippine National Police. Kasi they are sila naman yung mga professionals na who can handle that one. Now, in providing remote PFA, this one, the link part, the referral, we give information. So part of our linking is to give information. We ask what they know and believe about the virus, for example, and where and how they get updated information. So we have to facilitate them wherein they can access reliable and right information. Kasi for example, right now in our situation, very fearful in a sense. Marami sa aton have these fears, and this fear is being fueled by uncertainty. Kasi hindi klaro eh. And also when we link, we need to connect to social support. So ask how they stay in touch with their loved ones, their friends, access to the religious practices or family rituals. Last week, it was discussed ni Father RC, the importance of family rituals. Again, this is a challenge for all of us. And as a PFA provider, we need to connect them or to let them kumbaga rekindle ano yung mga rituals, since if you remember earlier in the IASC MHPSS intervention pyramid, nasa level 2, no? After provision of basic support, basic services, very important ang support services ng family and community, and family rituals can be one of this. And of course, part naglinking is refer. Ask if there are any practical problem or challenges and refer to other services if needed. So, very important that we must know kung saan natin i-refer yung ating mga clients. For example, we refer our clients or callers to guidance counselors if the client needs assistance when it comes to adjustment. Kumbaga, dealing with normal problems under normal situation. However, pag yung client or caller would exhibit signs and symptoms na seem somehow quote-unquote abnormal, we might refer them to psychologists. And if kailangan ng gamot, then we refer them to our psychiatrist. I would like to share an experience. I think a few weeks ago, one of our nurses called up early morning. Sabi niya, Sir Franz, we have this teacher. Ilang days na siya na hindi nakatulog. Nag-shoot up yung BP niya and so on and so forth. She asked for help. Nurse namin. Sabi ko, ma'am, you look first for a psychiatrist. Our teacher might be needing medicines or medication para mapakalma siya. Then after that, we might refer the teacher to another mental health professional for follow-up, maybe for a psychologist, or maybe if our division office is kumbaga when magbalik na sa school yung teacher, we might ask the help of a counselor for aftercare. So ganon, we need to refer if need natin yung assistance when it comes to case management, community organizing, when it comes sa ito sa mga abuses, we might refer the case to our social workers because they're trained to do that. But for counseling, you refer to counselors and maybe psychologists, and of course for psychologists, psychotherapy. Then of course after that, if you are receiving call, to end the conversation, we have to summarize, or we have to summarize the conversation by highlighting the key issues discussed and what are the action points identified. Then you can agree for a follow-up meeting or a follow-up call if possible. And of course, we don't forget to thank the client or the caller for the conversation, and we thank the client for his or her trust in opening up sa inyo as PFA providers. Now, so that's our core action principles of the psychological first aid. So we have the look, listen, and link. Now, we have also to consider the vulnerable and need special help. These are the sectors na very vulnerable, especially in times of crisis and disasters. Of course, the children, including the adolescents. This is especially right now, medyo mainit yung usapan regarding sa opening of classes. But aside from the fears, aside from our preparations, aside from the budgetary constraints, the concerns of our teachers, we have to consider also that behind those other concerns is the vulnerability and the mental health of our learners, not only in the public schools, but also in the private schools. We need also to consider the people with health conditions or disabilities. Of course, yung ating mga senior citizens, uh, in those with pre-existing health conditions, with those with disabilities and with special needs, and those people at risk of discrimination or violence. So very, very important to. Especially, I think a week ago, there is this very disturbing article from one of our media entity regarding prostitution of women since because of poverty of our some government officials, so or public officers. So we need to consider that also, that in providing PFA, we give preference to this most vulnerable of our society. Now, professional behavior in delivering PFA. Again, this is a reminder, especially for our laypersons and PFA providers. We should only operate within the framework of an authorized disaster response system. Now, we have to follow the mandates, the existing guidelines, the existing ethical considerations. So, we only operate within the framework. So we model healthy responses. So we must be calm, courteous, organized, and helpful. That is why in the delivery of psychosocial support services, as I have mentioned earlier, we need to be prepared physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Kasi pag nasa field tayo, our responses are being modeled or tinitingnan tayo. We must be also visible and available, and we maintain confidentiality. We remain within the scope of the expertise and designated role. So, example, as a counselor, I could not brand or I could not diagnose yung ano yung tao, for example, baka may generalized anxiety disorder na siya. I could not do that because that is not my expertise. It's beyond the scope of my expertise. Only the psychologists can do that, or even our psychiatrists. Okay. So, professional behavior in delivering PFA also considers we make appropriate referrals. So, pag hindi natin kaya, we must, again, remember, do no harm. So, we refer. Be knowledgeable and sensitive. So, dapat alam natin yung culture, yung background. Again, this is very evident in a face-to-face delivery of PFA. And pay attention to your own emotional and physical reactions. Remember, in giving PFA, baka yung sinasabi dyan yung sinishare ng client might be your trigger, or might yung sensitivities mo ma-trigger din. Then of course, very important, practice self-care. We could not give what we do not have. So very important, as PFA providers or as helpers, if we want to help, we must first help ourselves. Parang if those who are riding the airplane, diba, bago mag-fly yung airplane, diba, may mga instructions yung mga steward and stewardess natin. So when it comes to oxygen, if may maliit na bata or may child ka na kasama, you have first to put on your mask bago mo siya i-help na lagyan ng mask. So we must first take care of ourselves in order to help others. So we do not make assumptions about the survivors are experiencing or what they have gone through. We must be there only to listen, no judgment, no discrimination. We do not assume that everyone exposed to a disaster will be traumatized. Remember, not everyone needs PFA. Do not pathologize. So we do not label reactions as symptoms. So may anxiety na siya or may PTSD na siya. We don't do that. We do not talk down to or patronize the survivor, rather, or focus on his helplessness or weaknesses, mistakes, or disability. Rather, we focus on what he or she has done effectively to help others. So that is why we must help our clients to help themselves. So do not assume that all survivors want to talk or need to talk to you. As I have mentioned, keep on mentioning, our mere presence, calming and assuring presence might be already a PFA for some. Do not debrief by asking others of what happened, and do not speculate or offer possible inaccurate information. So as providers, we need to take care of ourselves. So we must also manage our stress. So these are some tips. So think about what has helped you cope in the past and what can you do to stay strong. Try to take time to eat, relax, and rest even for short periods. So hindi tayo Superman. Tao tayo. Human beings tayo. We have our own processes physiologically. So we need to take time to eat, rest, and relax. Try to keep reasonable working hours so you do not become too exhausted. So, for example, we divide the workload or in shifts, and you should be taking regular rest periods, especially sa acute phase ng crisis. So remember, you are not responsible for solving all the people's problems. Do what you can to help people help themselves. Okay? So we assist, we facilitate. Again, minimize your intake of alcohol, caffeine, or nicotine, and avoid non-prescription drugs. Okay? It might affect you or us emotionally, mentally, baka may mga side effects. Okay? And of course, need natin din kamustahan. Check with other helpers to see how they're doing and have them check in with you. Find ways to support each other, especially for PFA providers. Hindi natin, again, we are not heroes. Hindi tayo si Superman, si Superwoman. Rather, we are human beings and we need each other. We need a strong support system for us to survive also. And talk with friends, loved ones, or other people you trust for support. Now, please consider that our reactions to COVID-19 pandemic are normal to abnormal situations. So please take note what you are or what you might be experiencing right now are normal reactions. And these reactions makes us more human. And so with that, these are my references of this webinar. You might access this also, and right now I am open for the question and answer portion. So please type your questions if you have questions, because I will gladly answer that one. So while waiting for our questions, I would like to remind everyone for our attendees. Okay. This is a very good question. Do we need to ask the helpees to fill out consent forms before online counseling conducted. Again, we are talking here about, if we talk about online counseling, then it's very important to have the consent. This is informed consent. It's very important. In PFA, this is a different one because this is it can be done by a lay person. Okay. Very good question. So how can we help children below 10 years old with the new normal? As I have shown earlier sa isang slide, there are possible interventions. But basically, yung children natin, we have to consider na they have sa kanilang level, especially yung 10-year-old, part pa rin ng kanilang developmental stage is the play. So we need them to play. So right now, as a parent or a significant other, you have to set the routine. Very important. Number two, your presence as a parent or significant other. And of course, we must be what do you call this one? Creative enough to look for other possibilities wherein we can rechannel the energies of our 10-year-old child or 10-year-old children. Okay? Then, okay, another question here. Are there specific activities that we can give to supplement tele or online counseling? Again, what I am discussing here is psychological first aid. And psychological first aid can be done by any person na trained. Now, if we're talking about online counseling or telecounseling, you might reserve your question for the webinar of Doc Julian, okay? Which will happen, I think, next week. Question, what is the client, what if the client is telling about suicidal thoughts but has no plans of doing it? Do you still break the rule of confidentiality? Again, since we're talking about PFA, you need to refer it. You need to refer this. But again, if suicidal thoughts, it's a judgment call of the mental health professional. For example, if this is in the context of counseling, iba to yung mangyayari. But in the case of PFA, you have to refer it. Okay? Are there some legal implications in the conduct of remote counseling, like through chat or video? What are the safety nets? Yes, there are legal implications. That is why we have provided an interim guidelines for the meantime, since it will be a new normal already. But again, sa PFA, for now, I haven't seen any concern regarding this one. But then we have to observe the confidentiality aspect. Another question, how can a PFA provider Sir, should we have a mental health office distinct from guidance and counseling office? I don't know if the context is with the DepEd. Right now, or actually, based na lang sa law, RA 11036, remember, guidance counselors are mental health professionals. Okay? So you have, as a guidance counselor, hindi mo pwede maalis si guidance and counseling services kay guidance counselor, and the mental health services hindi mo rin pwede maalis sa kay guidance counselor. Sorry for others, ang daming questions. Wait. Question ng psychometricians. Uh, Psychometricians, if you're trained, you can do PFA. Right now, I'm still in talks with one of our groups sa psychometricians. I might be giving another webinar exclusively for psychometricians on PFA. We can answer that maybe on Saturday, I think. But we are still on talks with an admin of psychometrician group. My apologies for everyone. There's so much, daming questions. Medyo, sorry. Nag-up na siya, sorry. What could be the possible psychological effect of this pandemic to our learners with special needs? Yes, may ano siya talaga, may effect siya. One case, for example, may isang student with, I think with autism, during the first weeks of pandemic, since nasira yung routine niya, nagulat sila na umalis lang yung umalis lang yung bata. But then he was found. So this is one of the concerns, or we need to consider ang routine, especially those with pre-existing conditions or with special needs. Another question here. Would you recommend PFA to be given to teachers and staff first when they report for work before they can do it with their students? Yes, I would recommend that. But we have to consider that not all, hindi lahat, nangailangan ng PFA. Okay? Because some might be coping and being resilient. Pero it's good na meron talaga, and I would recommend PFA to be given. And PFA should be given not only in the aspect of disasters and emergencies, but even during a person, na-experience ng person ang isang distressful na situation. How can we access students who needs PFA right now? We go back to look, listen, and link. Sa look, okay? What can be the best way to provide psychosocial support for students who have unsupportive parents? Nawala na yung tanong. But from that question, again, psychosocial support does not sa psychosocial support, PFA is included there as one of the interventions. We have also other activities, just like, for example, psychoeducation. So very important ang information drive or information dissemination. About consent, so remote PFA, we can have our helplines for those asking in the DepEd. As far I heard that the central office is trying to make something na ma-answer din yung need natin. So that we will wait for that. Yes, some psychosocial interventions that can be given to adolescent learners. This is more of the support. Siguro we can have a support group, kamustahan. This might be simple, but it can be effective. Ano po yung setup ng guidance office during the new normal? For now, we don't have, we are trying to reach with the consensus within the PGCA. We might give our position here, anong setup ng guidance office. But rest assured na yung setup or yung pag-usapan namin or yung position na ipapalabas natin sa PGCA would be in consonance with the existing IATF, rules, DOH and IATF rules and guidelines. Can PGCA conduct PFA training to barangay officials? Yes, we can. Please coordinate lang sa nag-question po with our Facebook page. It is safe to conduct stress management sessions to students. Again, stress management is but we advocate for the PFA since it is more humane support, and ito na yung ginagamit natin. So stress management can be in the form of webinar, just like this one, can be delivered remotely. What are the possible risks if remote PFA shall be given to elementary pupils? Consent siguro, number one. They are underage. Isa din yun po. We have to consider. Yeah, very good question kasi ang daming gray areas. Please remember sa ating participants na what they call this one. This is, kumbaga, it seems lahat tayo nabulagta with this kind of situation. Kumbaga, even in workplaces, even in schools, it seems hindi tayo naka-prepare. So, your questions, very good questions talaga. So, we will try to look on this matter. So, PFA for children. Okay. Evaluation form later. Will PGCA come up with modules used by PFA advocates? We will try to talk or to discuss this one, but please take note. Ito po yung sa aking references. Last 2018, the DOH, DepEd, and DSWD, sorry. Meron na silang Harmonized Mental Health and Psychosocial Support Training Manual. We can use that training manual already. Okay? At the school level, who should spearhead PFA? Okay. Yung proposal namin for DepEd, especially yung I think the question is from DepEd, is to position yung guidance counselors in the school, in the division level, school division office, so that they can supervise and give technical assistance, especially in the provision of mental health services. So, which would include PFA. So, okay lang if the DRRM coordinator, because if trained CDRM coordinator, then the DRRM coordinator can lead in the school level. Pero, please take note that we need to have also monitoring, supervision, monitoring and supervision. So, please take note din na for PFA providers, our mere presence, being there, and we must not go beyond of what is the PFA. We ask details, so we are already venturing outside the PFA, and that is beyond sa in-expect po sa inyo. Baka you are already venturing to counseling, and that would be tantamount to the violation of RA 9258. So yun yung concern lang po. Then, can we include PFA in our contextualized learning continuity plan? Yes, I think this coming from DepEd. Yes. Another thing, we need to understand that to one DepEd order, what the DepEd order tells us yung sa calendar activities, I think number 7, entry number 7. At the start of the school year, PFA should be provided. Hindi siya, siguro psychosocial counseling is a different one. It should be done by counselors, but PFA can be provided by anyone. However, in order to maintain the quality of our PFA, we need siguro the supervision, monitoring, and the technical assistance from our guidance counselors. So siguro that's our yung ating ating point dito. Yeah, for those who are asking about psychological debriefing, nag-shift tayo sa PFA because psychological debriefing is studies would show that hindi naman siya that somehow hindi naman that harmful siya, pero you exert more effort than psychological debriefing than PFA. Plus kumbaga kaunti lang yung difference when it comes to the recovery or the support. So that is why PFA is being yun yung fina-follow natin. It is okay to conduct barangay official, to conduct and church leaders by invitations. Yes, kung training ito. How do we involve in psychoeducation? Giving the correct information, the right information. So yun, for example, psychoeducation, what are the things, example, on mental health, it's part of psychoeducation. What are the normal reactions ng tao during the pandemic? This can be part of psychoeducation. Hand washing, how we protect ourselves from COVID-19, that's part of psychoeducation. What are your recommendations? Call to action sa DepEd Central. Right now, we are in, as far as I'm concerned, question ito maganda. Ito sa DepEd. We are now in coordination with the DRRMS of the DepEd regarding this one. Please stay tuned lang po, sir. Then how about the 3 to 5 years old? Anong setup pwede sa kanila? Online tutorial for them. Ayan. This would require information dissemination. Again, PFA. Ang topic natin PFA. We might need some webinar here to discuss that. So will DepEd provide unified activity? As far as I'm concerned, I don't know pa. We will wait for further instructions sa DepEd. Questions? Let me see. Ask ko rin po anong possible na PFA plan or intervention for children with special needs. Again, PFA, yung PFA, balik tayo sa look, listen, and link as its core operational principle. So for special needs, so it can be tweaked in a sense na maging akma siya for student with special needs, okay, or children with special needs. Can we consider chatting as form of counseling? Based sa existing natin, again, when we say counseling, ang dating definition ng counseling is a face-to-face interaction. Chatting could be a tele-mental health service, but we need, it might be assistance or might be PFA through chat, no? But there are some considerations about this. Kasi sa PFA, it's still look, listen, and link. So how can we look or we can listen? Kasi that's another challenge for mental health professionals since nasanay tayo sa face-to-face interaction. But it is a good question. I-park ko lang ito po, ma'am, regarding this one. How can we encourage the local government units to partner with PFA providers or professional orgs so that this may form part of their service to their constituents? Yes, wow, very, very good. Very good question, man. Since especially yung only few LGUs kumbaga nakatutok with the mental health. More tayo, again, we go back siguro sa training. The PFA, the PGCA, kumbaga right now we are doing one step at a time, but sooner or later, siguro together with other national counseling associations, we can partner with the League of Municipalities or with the DILG in providing this one. PGCA is part also of the kumbaga part ng committee na finorm ng Philippine Center for Mental Health. Dr. Hines is part of that. Siguro we can look into consideration, and we can reach out with our LGUs. How can we assist somebody na isolated? Yes, it can be through remote PFA po. Yes, evaluation form at the end of the session. Possible po ba na PFA through online for children 3 to 5? That's online siya, maybe maybe ito using Zoom, using Skype, using Viber, or na may video siya. Very important, especially yung children natin. And aside from that, yung the consent of an adult. Wait, nawala siya. I'm very sorry. My apologies. May binabasa ako ng mga questions pero nawawala siya because sa dami ng questions at sa dami ng nagchat-chat. Okay. What shall we give to our students upon resumption of classes in terms of psychosocial support? Yes, PFA can be one, psychoeducation can be one, group processes can be one. Siguro this one, we can ask, that is why we are asking the DepEd. We are appealing to DepEd to position the guidance counselors in the school division offices so that they can be maximized according to their expertise, and also in the regional levels, wherein makatulong talaga si guidance counselors when it comes to the provision of mental health and psychosocial services. Our guidance counselor, our guidance designee, yes, advocates allowed to give PFA to teachers. Yes, pwede tayo magbigay ng PFA. However, again, a word of caution, pag hindi natin kaya, we refer. Again, we go back to PFA. This is a humane support to each other, and yung operational principle natin, look, listen, and link. What about po sa hindi registered counsel? Yes, lahat po. Lay person, hindi mental health professional can do it. PFA, basta trained po. Okay. Board exam of counselors. Yes, we are board of exam of counselors. We have already nakapalabas kami ng survey. Please wait lang po kasi yung results ng survey was already will be given to our PR board, and the PR board will be the one to decide for that upon their submission to the PRC. So please wait for the announcements lang po. Sa SK are encouraged by the Philippine Youth Development to implement PPAs on mental health. Yes, what can you suggest? Wow, this is a very good question, Sir Limuel. What po may suggest nyo po sa ganong na di po ganong costly? This one, we need to coordinate with we can be partners, and we can collaborate. Example, yung Philippine Guidance and Counseling Association or your guidance counselors in your locality. The DILG can tap counselors also. With this one, we can help you with this one, with the mental health PPAs, project programs and activities. Yes. What particular trainings does one need to be well-trained PFA? Actually, what I'm giving to you is, kumbaga, modified, medyo siksik na introduction. Kasi pag ganito, you need at least may ideally dapat may tawag nito, may practicum pa sana. Okay, and just like in Hindi mo lang ito makukuha one shot, but your skills in PFA can be honed through time and you have to trust the process po. Yan, need to be trained. No, Reginda is PFA is for everyone. But again, the mental health professionals can also do PFA. But ito, PFA can be done by everyone, including mental health professionals. However, some of the services ng mental health professionals hindi pwedeng gawin ng isang lay person. But the lay person can help the mental health professionals through psychological first aid. By analogy, for example, someone po may cut or may wound. So we have to apply first aid. You have to wash the wound, you have to put betadine, you have to put the dressings. Then, pag medyo malalim, you bring to the hospital or clinic. Paunang lunas lang po yung psychological first aid. It can be done by everyone. However, if ang mental health services na kailangan would be psychosocial, psychiatric, neurologic, it would require mental health professionals. Yes. Yes, not debriefing is not not recommended by World Health Organization. Yes po. Oh, there's a question. Ilang ratio po ba handle ng isang RGC right now sa DepEd? 1:500. Sa CHED, 1:1000. But I think with some questions na hindi siya directly related to PFA, I think we need to, I will have to run another webinar on guidance and counseling. Kung baga crash course on guidance and counseling. Maybe I can do that. It's another good question. How can we avoid advice giving to students? Ayan. Without having biases. PFA, actually, if we look PFA, you don't need to give advice. You have to be there. You have to listen. You have to be open with, you have to be genuine, you have to be trustworthy. You don't need to be biased kung anong sinasabi ng student or ng learner. Pag hindi mo kaya, you refer. We don't give, if you want, sa PFA, sa advice giving, kasi when we say advice giving, there is a possibility that we might be imposing something. So it should be a no-no. So we need to refer. You might, in the advice giving, you might be also misinterpreted, or kung baga sinunod ng isang tao yung advice mo and it turns out na mali sa kanya, baka ikaw pa yung balikan. Okay. So I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed and so thankful with all the with all your chat, your comments. Pasensya po, pero I think I could not answer all your questions, but siguro you can type your concerns sa ating evaluation later. Sir Dan will post the evaluation link. A reminder lang po, after this webinar. So please answer your post test and evaluation. So a link will be provided at the comment section and or on a separate post. Please check. It might be in the comment section or there is a separate post in the PGCA official page. Please check lang po on your comment section or if there is a separate post. Okay? So please be reminded also, e-certificates will be emailed to your email addresses indicated in your registration and post-evaluation test. Yes. And please give us time to send it to you. Kanina yung aming registrants, umabot na po ng 8,000. So we have 8,000 participants and we have individual certificates. Please give us time po to send it sa inyo. Then schedule for the upcoming webinars are already posted in the PGCA official page. So I will flash it again. And please take note, there will be a separate post or poster na ipoprovide for each webinar with a registration link. Basta may naka-blue sa post, yun po yung link. Kasi maraming yung others are still asking nasaan po ang link. So again, remember, for example, ganito. So for May 28 sa Thursday, yung kay Father Ted, Resilience in the New Normal, please wait po for a poster na ipopost po sa PGCA Facebook page. Okay? So ito po yung webinar series natin until June 11. After June 11, I do believe meron pa po. So please hold on lang. We will be doing this Tuesday and Thursday. Okay? So these are the please stay tuned sa ating PGCA webinar series 2020. So sa Thursday with Father Ted, then next week kay Doc Julian, living through time of crisis, challenges and resources. Then on June 4 we have Doc Rick Banson. June 9, Doc Julian Montano. Again, some questions might be catered here on tele and web counseling, and that would include also ethics and ethical considerations. Then June 11, Thursday, with Father RC, facing grief during the pandemic. Please don't forget to like this Facebook page, the PGCA official, so that makita nyo kaagad yung ating mga updates and other information na pwede nang ibigay ng PGCA. So please don't forget to like and subscribe. And personally, this is my email po. Okay, so again, I would like to thank you everyone. Maraming salamat po with your support, with your presence, with your attendance, with your participation with our webinar on blended hugs, helping others through psychological first aid. So see you again on Thursday with Father Ted, and see you around with the PGCA free webinar series. And we would like to ask you also to please stay tuned for other information and announcements of the PGCA. So we are working hand in hand with with the government and other organizations to provide mental health services for the general public, especially during these times of COVID-19. So with that, thank you and good afternoon.